Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be comparing the Canon M50 versus the Sony a6100. These are two cameras that are very close to each other, have very similar specs, and today we're going to find out which one is by far the better one, because there's definitely one. You're gonna have to wait to see which one that is, but let's go ahead and dive into this video. Now, one thing I wanted to talk about is you haven't been seeing too many videos. My uploads have been kind of off and on lately. That's because I started back to school and I'm grinding on that, and that's been taking up a lot of my time. So I'm just gonna upload whenever I can, but I wanted to thank you guys so much for the growth of this channel so much. We hit 150 like a few days ago from when I'm filming this video, and we're still going up. It's getting really exciting. My channel's starting to pick up the pace, so thank you guys. It's all because of you guys. So we're gonna keep going. I have no intention of ever stopping, so who knows where this channel might go someday. But enough blabbering, let's go ahead and compare the Sony a6100 versus the Canon M50. I do not have any of these cameras anymore because I returned both of them because you can go watch the Canon M50 video, you can go watch the Sony a6100 videos. They will be at the end cards at the end of this video. They will be popping up right here, and they might be in the description. I don't know for sure. There is an Amazon affiliate link in the description if you want to get either of these cameras and you decide at the end of this video that you really like one of them and you got the cash, go pick it up. Also, the link helps me out, but you probably know that already. So let's go over the specs real fast. The Canon M50 does 720 at 120 frames a second, and it also does 1080p at 24 frames a second, 30 frames a second, 60 frames a second, and that does do 4K at only 24 frames a second. And spoiler alert, it's a horrible 4K. I'm pretty sure it's just upscaled 1080, which is not good. You lose the autofocus. It crops in by like 50% or something. And they're both crop censored cameras, so that's already horrible. I don't recommend you ever using 4K. So if you're getting the Canon M50, you need to want a 1080p camera and not a 4K camera, because the Canon M50 is not going to be your camera for 4K, because still in 2020 you need to, go close, if not over $1,000 to get a good 4K camera. More about that in a second. So now we go to the Sony a6100, which it does 720, I think, is all your normal frame rates, but it does 1080 at 24 frames a second, 30 frames a second, 60 frames a second, and 120 frames a second, which is very nice because it has a higher quality slow-mo, higher frames for, if you want to 120 frames a second is not slow enough to shoot a gun, but if you want to shoot a Nerf gun, you can slow that down by some, or shoot an airsoft gun in my case, or a Nerf gun also in my case, or RC car. But one thing about the Sony a6100 that gives it a big advantage over the Canon M50 in video quality, at least, is it does decent or great 4K. It's actually 6K downsampled to 4K rather than the M50's 1080p up to 4K. So it does 24 frames a second with no crop, and 30 frames a second with a slight 2 times crop or 1 times crop, I can't remember, but it's nothing to worry about. If you're one of those people that really need to do their 30 frames, you can do it, but I would recommend just staying at that 24 cinematic real life look, even though I don't know what frame rate I'm shooting at right now for this camera. But if that's a big deal for you, the Sony a6100 will definitely get that done and supply you some stunning 4K. One thing though, if this is your first 4K camera, and you've never used anything 4K and try to upload it, wow, the 4K takes up a lot of space. Literally it takes up 4 times more space than 1080. I can shoot a 20-minute clip. I think it was an 18-minute, but we'll say it's 20-minute clip. It takes up 2 gigabytes or 4 gigabytes on a 1080 clip at 60 frames, 24 frames at 4K. It goes to 20 minutes, but it takes up 16 gigabytes, 4 times more. that's a little bit ridiculous in my opinion, and unless this is like your full-time job and you can afford that file space, it's gonna get pretty pricey, but it does supply a very stunning, amazing look. Now, one thing that's very important for certain use cases is the Sony a6100 has no record limit. It doesn't ever stop recording unless you run out of battery or 4K fill-up space on your SD card. So if one of those two things happens, it will stop recording, but other than that, it will never stop recording. I think it stops recording in like 13 hours and 59 minutes and 99 seconds or something, but basically it never stops recording. The Canon M50, on the other hand, has a 29 minute and 99 second record limit. I believe that's because it's an older camera from 2018, and that's, I believe, when they still had like the British tax on camcorders and stuff. That's a whole nother thing. Look some videos up on that. It's pretty interesting actually. But that's why it's a little bit of an older camera, and they had to pay the tax back then. They were too cheap to pay the tax, so they chose to just put that record limit in it, which can be a deal breaker for certain things, like in my case, because I was looking for a camera without a record limit for a specific big project that I'm going to be doing. Stay tuned for that, because there's some insanely exciting things coming up on this channel. Seriously, a lot of stuff's coming up on this channel, so get excited. I am very excited, but for me, if that 30 minute record limit, my dog is barking, is a massive deal breaker. But that's not just something to consider right now, that's something to consider in the future. Will you need to be doing live streams? If you're going to need to be doing live streams, that Sony a6100 will definitely be your man, because that 30, you know, unless you're doing like 29-minute live streams, normally people go for like an hour or two, or for like 45 minutes at least, so that M50 would definitely be a deal breaker. So think if you're going to be doing a live stream or longer videos in the future. Next up is build quality and just how does it feel in your hand. So in my opinion, the M50 definitely gets a point here. I would say the Sony a6100 destroys the M50 in video quality, but the build quality, I'd say the Canon M50 does a whole lot better, and that is just because it's the Canon plastic. It's the same kind of plastic as like their higher end DSLRs. They just use, I believe they use the same plastic for every single camera they make that's a mirrorless or DSLR type camera, and it's a very nice, like sturdy feeling plastic. It feels like this. I don't know, you can't really tell just by looking at it, but it's a nice, solid feeling plastic that doesn't feel like it's ever going to give out on you. So if you drop it, you're not going to be like, oh, did I just break it? You feel like, okay, well, I scratched it, that's not great, but you're never going to feel or worry about that you just broke it if you dropped it. It's very solid, and it feels good. It's lightweight most of the time, which is a big deal, and the Canon M50's grip is not super comfortable. Like, it's not as comfy as even this Canon Rebel T6 grip, but it will do the job, and your hands won't cramp up at all, so it's pretty good. But on the other hand, the Sony a6100 has the cheapest build quality I have ever felt in the camera. That's a big statement really, but literally this tiny, I think this is like the SQ12 or something, this tiny little camera has a better feeling plastic on it than the, what is it, like $700-800 camera. That's ridiculous. Like, it felt like if I dropped it, I would break it. It did not feel good in my hand. The grip, as the 6000 line is known for, other than the 6500 and 6600, the grips are horrible. So your hands are gonna cramp up if you hold the grip for too long with like a heavier lens, and then just, it feels so cheap. And that's a big deal breaker for a lot of people, and that's why a lot of people consider the 6400, because that's almost the only difference between the 6100 and 6400. So that's kind of something to think about, but the M50 definitely feels better, and it's not a magnesium alloy like a 6400 or a 6600, but it feels very good in your hand and will definitely get you by. No weather sealing on it though, but if you're using your camera out in the rain, there's probably other things to worry about. Next up, I want to talk about the screens. Now, the Canon M50 has a touchscreen, where the Sony a6100 has a touchscreen. So the difference between those are that the Sony a6100 only touch to focus, but to go through the menu system, change your settings or anything, you have to use the back dials. With the Canon M50 though, you can do anything. You can reach over to your screen, which is actually on the side, and then you can change all your settings. Oh shoot, I'm supposed to film this clip in 4K at 24 for my client. Switch over to 4K 24. Bam, you're there. You know, it's really simple. With the Sony a6100, if I need to change a setting, I can't tap the screen unless I need to focus on something. I have to reach around my camera, jiggle my camera a bunch like I'm doing right now, and try to change all the settings, and you don't know where the buttons are, and it's a pain in the butt. I didn't realize it till I got the 6100 after the Canon M50, and I missed it so bad. At first I thought the touchscreen, everything was a nuisance on the M50, but it's definitely something that I'd totally lean for on the Canon M50. That's definitely, you want a full touchscreen, that is amazing. Autofocus though is amazing on both cameras. It will autofocus immediately. I did notice that the Sony a6100 is a little bit snappier, but you're going to be insanely happy on the autofocus of both cameras because Canon uses their dual pixel autofocus, and Sony uses their newer dual pixel autofocus, not dual pixel autofocus, but it's like a newer version of that, but they both work the exact same. And of course this is all from personal experience because I've had both. And while we're on the screen still, let's go ahead and talk about the flip around screen on the Canon M50 versus the flip up screen on the Sony a6100. Which one do I like better? By far the flip out screen. I do it a different way every time on the Canon M50. It's amazing. Like, if you want to go just anywhere, you can just be, you know, showing something on your camera, flip it around, grab it here, boom, if you know what I'm saying, boom, and then you're out talking like this. With the 6100, it's just kind of a pain to flip screen. It feels very limited. It can get in your way a bunch. Also, the flip up screen gets in the way of your microphone. You have to get a shoe that moves it to the side. That's another like 20 bucks. Doesn't look particularly great. Just the flip screen looks really good. It performs really well, flips really nice. I definitely prefer the flip screen, but it's not really that, you know, big of a deal or much of a deal breaker. In my personal opinion, I do prefer the flip out screen. It just is a lot more streamlined and just has a lot more use cases that I prefer. Next up is the how easy is it to use and the price. How easy are the cameras to use? People have a heck of a time talking about the Sony menu system, although it just got upgraded on the Sony a7S III. I've never had any troubles on either of the menu systems. The Canon menu system works great, although it is a little bit more simplified. The Sony user system, which I'm talking about menu settings, work perfectly great. My first real camera was a Sony RX100 Mark IV, which I'm using right now for this video. And since this was the only menu system I ever knew, worked great for me, had no problems with it, so I wouldn't worry too much about the user systems. They're just about the same for both of them, and it's not much of a big deal in my opinion. Price, the Canon M50 can be normally found for about $599. Without a lens, it's about $579.99. So that's pretty great price for a camera. I have found it for $499 with the lens on sale on B&H once, so that's something to keep your eyes out, but that was like 2 or 3 months ago and it hasn't been on sale again. So if you're gonna wait, probably don't want to wait for a sale because it's going to take a long time to happen. With the Sony a6100, it comes in at $799.99 at retail. That's the MSRP, which is still staying at, but it is going down in price constantly, and the best deal I've ever seen on it was $599.99, which is a smoking deal for that camera. Both though, it really doesn't matter too much the price because they're so close, and they're both just very fair in the price range. Maybe the 6100 is a little bit possibly overpriced at MSRP because of the build quality is so poor. I felt like they could have made that a lot better. I'm gonna keep talking about that because it was so disappointing, but that's just another thing to consider. What's your budget, and do you still want to have enough budget to get a microphone, tripod, lights, all that stuff? But that's a whole nother video. Alright, last up, let's talk about the deal breaker that I've been holding off to talk about this entire video that I really didn't want to talk about, and I really wanted to enjoy my 6100, but this totally crippled the a6100 that no one really mentions that much, and it is something that destroys the Sony a6100 and makes the M50, I would say, 100% the better choice, unless one use case, which I will get to in a second, the stabilization. The Sony a6100 has the worst stabilization and rolling shutter in video I have ever seen. No one on the internet emphasized this. They were just like, yeah, not great image stabilization, could be a little bit better, and then has some rolling shutter, not a big deal. It's horrible. If you watch my review, it's the whole reason I got rid of the camera. Wow, it was so bad. Literally, if you go watch some of my other videos, especially my Sony a6100 review, I talk about it and show a little bit of an example. It's really shaky. It looks like you're going like this with the camera, but you're actually just going like this walking. It's totally ridiculous. And the rolling shutter, on top of that, instead of just going like this, your face warps. So I'll go ahead and explain rolling shutter really fast for this video just so you can get my point here. Rolling shutter is how the camera scans. So say if you have it in 24 frames a second, it goes like this, 24 times a second. So it's basically how it takes your image is it scans it from the top, goes down from the top to the bottom. So for some reason with the Sony a6400, it takes too long, which I don't know how, because it does it the exact same time in 24 seconds. I don't know, but its rolling shutter is weird where it will scan from the top, and then by the time it scans all the way down to the bottom, you've moved. So say if it's here, if I'm here, right, and I move here and it scans down, it's gonna stitch that together, and then my face is gonna look warped and look pulled like this, and it looks horrible, and it just stacks on top of the horrible stabilization and makes the footage unwatchable. And that's why if you want to touch your camera, I do not recommend the Sony a6100. On the other side, the Canon M50, it's not GoPro like Hero 7 or Hero 8 quality, but it is great image stabilization. It will get you by no problem. You will never question the image stabilization. It works perfectly. So the 6100, the one use case for it is if you have a vlogging camera like a Sony RX100 Mark like 4 and up, is the 8 out yet? I have no idea. 4 up, and you have the vlogging camera, you have a GoPro, you just want to, you know, have a sit-down camera for your studio or whatever to set on your tripod and film just talking head segments like this one. That's perfect. You can do that and it will look stunning. But if you want to tap your camera, it's going to be ridiculous and unwatchable. And that, in my opinion, is a deal breaker, and that's why 100% I recommend the Canon M50 over the Sony a6100, but the Sony a6600 just totally fixes all my complaints, like the poor build quality and the stabilization. It literally fixes everything. So if you want a camera that's made by Sony and you like their color science better like I do, you can just go to the 6600 and it fixes all your problems. But that's like an extra $1,000, $1,500 once you get a lens and everything. So that's not going to happen probably if you're watching this video. But I hope this helps you make your decision. I went through a lot of pain to find all this out, and I thought I'd compile it in a versus video so people don't make the same mistake as I did. But this is something that I need to mention. Keep in mind before you buy a Canon M50 that the Canon M60 or Canon M50 Mark II, we do not know what it's going to be called yet, will be revealed at the end of this year, will be revealed or released, either one, at the end of this year. So if you are worried about buyer's remorse, or you can wait a little while, I would definitely wait to see what the Canon M60 or Canon M50 Mark II has to offer, because it's rumored to have actual good 4K, better stabilization, better sensor, better autofocus, you know, better bio. It's going to have everything better. And that's something that if I were you, I'd wait to see what that is going to offer. But keep in mind, it's probably going to be about the price of the Sony a6100 at $699 or $799. We don't know quite yet, but if it went up too high to like $899 or $999, it would cannibalize the M2 camera. So it's not going to go that high. So it's going to be like $200 or $300 under the $1,000 price mark, so it's not going to be too much more. And in my opinion, I'd wait because it's definitely going to be worth shoveling over the extra $100 to possibly $300 for the 100% better camera. Again, if you can wait. But thank you guys for watching. Again, stay tuned because there's some ridiculously amazing stuff that's going to happen very soon. Hopefully very soon. Generally soon, pretty soon, hopefully. But thank you guys for watching. If you want to go check out some of my other videos, there will be a end card, the circle card is my logo. You can click on it and that will bring you to my channel, or if you're impatient, you can go down on that like button and hit my channel. It'll bring you to like 105, 106 videos that I cannot guarantee will be any better than this one, but they are pretty interesting and hopefully will entertain you guys a little bit. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.